Hello and welcome to the in-news series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pooja Devidi. In this segment today, we are going to discuss how the crisis in Myanmar is impacting India's relationship with Myanmar. The pressure on India is immense in order to condemn the crisis. The West is more preoccupied with the Ukrainian crisis and, of course, the issue of China-Taiwan, among other things. The ASEAN has proved to be ineffectual. So what stands in front of us is a huge crisis that may snowball to refugee crises and immigrant crises in northeastern India. That is all what we are going to discuss in today's episode. Let us start with the various topics that we are going to discuss from the perspective of prelims. Facts are important. From the perspective of GS Mains Paper 2, do have your focus totally implemented upon India-Myanmar relationship and how India sees this relationship from the prism of China. Alright, moving ahead, let us first of all look at this news piece. This is from the Indian Express. The violent chaos in Myanmar, a rapidly escalating crisis on India's doorstep. So, why is India under immense pressure? First of all, to condemn. Second of all, in order to ensure that it does not push Myanmar into the arms of China, it has to maintain its engagement with the military junta over there. So there is a lot of issue that is India facing with respect to Myanmar. Moving ahead, first of all, let us look at what is right now happening in Myanmar. So you see this region is the Kachin region of Myanmar, okay? And 80 people have been killed due to air raids here. This is the worst since the occupation or the military coup that took place in Myanmar. According to a report that was presented to the United Nations, more than 13.2 million people do not have enough to eat. 1.3 million have been displaced. The military continues to bomb discriminately, burning homes and buildings and even killing protesters and civilians. Of course, this is the entire, you can say, the development that we saw. Now, what is happening in Myanmar right now is pretty horrendous because the military junta, since the last 20 months, is unable to implement its rule, we can say, over the entire Myanmar region, the entire country. Why? Because there are rebellion groups which are rising against it, such as the Arakan Army, and the other one is one of the important ones are the People's Defense Force. These are allied to the self-declared National Unity Government in exile. So, because of the resistance that the military junta is facing right now with respect to its rule in Myanmar, there is a huge crisis that is going on and the country of Myanmar is in tatters. Attack helicopters have been deployed against the PDFs in Sagyang and Magwe regions. In Rakhine state, the military is fighting the Arakan army. Although Arakan army is anti-Rohingya, but still we can see that resistance is going from them. So if we talk about Myanmar and India's relationship, as we know, it shares a huge border. Myanmar shares a huge border with India with respect to the different states of Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. So whatever, this is the Rakhine state. Okay. So from Rakhine state, of course, we know that crisis emerged of Rohingyas. They started moving towards Bangladesh and many of the refugees settled in Bangladesh, but many of the refugees also came to northeast India from the Rakhine state. So this is the issue. First of all, we have migrant issue. But remember that the Treaty of Friendship, which was signed in 1951 between India and Myanmar, solidified the official relationship with Myanmar that India has. It was further concretized with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's visit to Myanmar in 1987. Although we are divided by borders, but India has a vast history of cultural, historical, ethnic and religious ties with Myanmar. Now Myanmar, it stands at the center of India's Southeast Asia geography, and because of, you can see, if India wants to enter the Southeast Asia, this is the country that is very significant as it is at the intersection of India's neighborhood first policy and India's Act East policy. Now, it is the only Southeast Asian country that shares a land border with northeastern India, apart from, if we talk about other ASEAN countries, they are not sharing borders with India, but only Myanmar. The two countries also share maritime border with Bay of Bengal. That is why for Myanmar, India, and for India, Myanmar is of strategic geopolitical significance. Moving ahead to other points, under a free regime movement that India already has with Myanmar, citizens of the two countries living within 16 kilometers of their sides of the border, they can cross over a permit and stay up to 2 weeks at a time. So this is the level of faith and trust both the countries have on each other. Moving ahead, let's talk about China. We will talk more about China in the context of the current situation. But overall, if we see, China is the biggest roadblock in India's relationship with Myanmar, because it is developing ports in Myanmar. So in order to counter that, China, under the security and growth for all in the region, that is SAGAR, India has developed the Sittwe port. Okay, and this is in order to counter Chinese presence. So Myanmar, why? Because China is a big roadblock. Why? Because Myanmar also falls under the China's Belt and Road Initiative. So China is putting a lot of money in the development of ports and rails in Myanmar in order to boost and further its own ambitions. Now, it is connecting the Chinese province of Yunnan with oil and gas fields in the Rakhine state. Okay, so the Rakhine state is connected with the help of Belt and Road Initiative, and many ports are being developed in Myanmar along with other countries as well. So India has to look at its relationship with Myanmar from the prism of China, because India cannot, just be a black and white country with respect to condemning it. We will discuss more about it. Now, Chin state and Sagyang region, which share a border with Manipur and Mizoram. So what happens that this is the one of the most we can say violent regions right now. And northeastern states in India, these are affected by two things. First is left-wing extremism. We already know many ethnic, you can say, extremists, left-wing extremists are situated in the northeastern region of India. So what happened? Like, this region is already volatile, and second is that it is also dealing with the Golden Triangle narcotics trade region. So from this region, the Golden Triangle of Myanmar, Laos and Thailand, a lot of drugs and narcotics are getting smuggled illegally in the region. So these are the two facets that India has to take care of whenever it is dealing with Myanmar, because for India, Myanmar is of huge significance if we talk from the perspective of putting a tab on, keeping a tab on, and curbing left-wing extremism, and also keeping the smuggling in check. So if we talk about the second part is of this, that first is of course the overall goal, that the umbrella goal is of keeping them in check and narcotics, and the third one right now is influx of refugees. A lot of refugees, registered refugees, have been recorded in Mizoram. Official record say that it is 30,000, but there are many unofficial ones. So Mizo National Front, which is a constituent, which is actually a part of NDA only, it has openly differed with the center on the issue of refugees, saying, why are you not doing anything? Because India is not a signatory to the 1951 Nations Refugee Convention or its 1962 protocol, nor does it have any domestic policy on refugees. So it is being called, center is being called on that only. Now, currently, if we talk about the economic aspects of it, India's projects in Myanmar, such as the trilateral highway to Thailand, as well as Kaladan waterway project. These two projects have been stalled. They were already delayed, but now they are not seeing any future that they will get accomplished. Why is India keeping such stance? First of all, India is committed to its long ago policy of non-aligned movement. India does not want to get into the internal affairs of any country. Other than that, India also does not believe in getting into the middle of two countries as well, such as Russia and Ukraine. So dialogues for them, for India, is something that is very important. Another thing is that although India has this policy, but it has expressed concerns at the interruption of democracy, and it wants Myanmar to return back to its democratic principles as soon as possible. Brutal steps such as gunning down of protesters and execution of 4 democratic activists were condemned by India. Apart from that, engaging with the junta is of extreme significance. First, of course, it does not want, the junta to go into China's hand, because that will only lead to that. India wants to be extremely cautious when it is dealing with its own neighbors. Okay. Secondly, because a lot of security issues were arisen in the past with respect to left-wing extremism, in which the military junta of Myanmar helped India. So, for these two very reasons. Moving ahead, other important points, there was a pact that was signed between the military junta and India to share real-time intelligence to combat Indian insurgents who are operating from the border region. Apart from that, India also has economic interest, because Myanmar is a region which is rich in natural resources, including natural gas, petroleum and rare earth metals. which are the future for India's high-tech industry. So these are the reasons. Okay. Moving ahead, let us talk about the other points. India was also among the 8 countries to attend Myanmar's Armed Forces Day in March of last year. And of course, this shows that India does not want to abandon its ties with military junta. Apart from that, major refugee crisis in India is snowballing. India also knows that if it keeps on supporting military or in Myanmar, the refugee crisis will snowball and northeastern states will will remain under a constant threat of, first of all, xenophobia. Xenophobia is the phobia of other people, alien, not like Jadoo and all, but aliens, that means foreigners who do not belong to one place, they are getting influxed in that region. Okay, so that is another point. Moving ahead, what can be done about it? India has to keep 2 things in mind. First of all, its security. Second of all, that it also has to fulfill its duty as a democratic country. So, it still has to engage with the army in the Myanmar region of Myanmar to, first of all, keep the security issue, the narcotics issue in check. Also, India can tap its current Buddhist circuit initiative in order to ensure that people-to-people contacts with India and Myanmar remain. Rohingya issue resolution is the biggest resolution that can be done. Let's see if it happens or not. But India can prove a major or can play a pivotal role with respect to refugee crisis with the help of Bangladesh. Apart from that, cooperation in different multilateral forums such as ASEAN, BIMSTEC also need to be there. Okay. Moving ahead, let us talk about other parts. That is Russia, first of all, vis-a-vis Myanmar. Russia and China have grown closer to Myanmar. Not only these countries, but Cambodia and Japan also started engaging more with the military junta. Myanmar continues to depend on China and Russia for military hardware as well as oil supplies because other countries have put sanctions on it. Myanmar is also awaiting the delivery of 4 Sukhoi 30 combat aircraft from Russia. 2 were already delivered. The regime has also set up a Russian oil purchasing committee in order to oversee the buying, importing and transport of the fuel at a reasonable price based on Myanmar's need. The two-way benefit is there. First of all, Myanmar is getting oil. Second of all, Russia is also getting its, finances done with the help of Myanmar's military junta. And atomic energy cooperation is also underway with respect to Russia and Myanmar. Now let's look at China. China has stepped up its economic vacuum, whatever was left by West. When sanctions are put, vacuum was left. And of course, Myanmar has no other way to go but to go to China. China also saw it an opportunity. So chaos was a ladder. Beijing was ready to work with Myanmar to cement the 4 pillars. First is mutual political trust, beneficial cooperation mutually, people-to-people bonds, and mutual learning in culture and people-to-people exchanges. So you see that political trust is strategic in nature, mutual benefit cooperation is economic in nature, and that both these two, people-to-people bonds and of course mutual learning in culture, these are a part of soft power. Soft power is something that you can employ in order to influence the culture of a region. So how China is using both. Moving ahead, the China-Myanmar economic corridor is still going ahead despite the fact that there is so much distortion, but still it is going ahead unlike India's projects. China is now a major cross-border supplier of electricity to Myanmar. Vacuum has not been filled by India but China. Chinese-Myanmar joint venture 135 megawatt power plant was inaugurated recently in 𝐾𝐞 in Rakhine State, and a new train service connecting Western China to Myanmar border is expected. That is of course going to lead to more people and people contact plus freight movement. China has also supplied JF Thunder fighter aircraft to Myanmar, and the junta has placed orders for Chinese FTC 2000 Gs jets. So you can see how far India lags behind. Global reaction is such that of course Australia, Canada, US, UK and European Union, these put sanctions. But there are no further ideas apart from putting sanctions. Sanctions work. We see how they have worked with respect to Russia and Ukraine. The purpose itself was defeated, although Russia might become economically weaker than it was. But the main purpose was to cease the war, but it did not happen. Moving ahead, let's talk about other things. A regional solution is still believed to be there, but ASEAN has failed. The consensus recently by ASEAN called for cessation of violence. Dialogue should take place among the concerned parties. Mediation, if it is wanted, then ASEAN can come into the picture. Provision of humanitarian aid and a visit by the special envoy to meet all concerned parties was touted. But let's see what happens next. Now, this is a question that is relevant with the perspective of your examination, from the perspective of your examination. Myanmar's military coup has brought a tightrope walk for India. It has to back democracy in Myanmar while ensuring its security and developmental interests. So you have to discuss it in 250 words. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching.